Hey everyone, this is Dr. Casey Johnson. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I know you're going to love today's episode with Casey Edward. Casey is doing some amazing work, so I'm excited to have her on to share a story with you guys. If you've been loving the Unlock Wellness podcast, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Also, be sure to follow me on social media to keep up with the latest podcast episodes. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My username across the board is at Dr. Casey Johnson. That's DrKaseyJohnsson. You can also check out my website at drcaseyjohnson.com. It has all of the past podcast episodes and more information about each guest under the Listen tab. While you're on my site, be sure to check out the Shop tab, where you can check out my first book of my Healthy Children's Book series. Thank you again for listening. I hope this episode leaves you feeling inspired to start making positive changes to your health. Now it's time for today's episode. I hope you love my conversation with Casey Edward. Welcome to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I'm Dr. Casey and excited for today's guest. I'm here with Casey Edward. And Casey is a motivational speaker, a vegan wellness coach, a life coach, and also hosts the I Can't Wait to Tell You podcast. She has an amazing course available as well, which I'm sure she's going to jump into that in some more detail in a little bit. But I'm just excited to have Casey on the show to share her story, her own wellness journey, and everything that she's been working on. So, Casey, thank you so much for taking time to come on. I'm excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I love that it's two Caseys right now.
I think it's like the best. It's a good combination of amazing names. So,
right. And I love that we spell it like very similarly, but just the K and the C are different.
Just barely enough. And I'm sure you get like the mix-ups all the time on your drink, coffee cup, all of that. So,
100% Cassie or Casey or just all of the spellings. And I'm like, I appreciate it though. Just so many different ways to spell it. But yes, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited. And just quick shout out to Pat McCauley. He's a mutual friend. And actually, I didn't even tell Pat that I connected with you. I should probably just send him a message and say, hey, but like I found Casey because she's friends with Pat, and Pat was a past podcast guest on actually both of our podcasts. So go check them both out. But no, Pat is amazing, like we were talking about before we started recording.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's one of like the dopest souls I know for sure, hands down.
Definitely. But yeah, no. So Casey, before we jump into like everything that you're working on with your course and everything that you're doing, let's start with your backstory. First off, where you're from and what your own health and wellness and just overall mindset looked just growing up as a kid.
All right. So I'm from Marshfield, Massachusetts, which is a small beach town about 45 minutes south of Boston. And growing up, I was very active. I was always playing sports, played soccer my whole life, including in college. But as I got older, so growing up, my eating habits were never great. Like Hidden Valley Ranch with salad was about as healthy as we got. Which is totally fine because I loved it back then. But so I never really grew up with like the greatest nutrition, which is to no fault of my parents because that was the norm for their generation and for our first half of our lives. So growing up, didn't eat that healthy, but was always active, so it was okay. And then I ended up going on birth control at the age of 12, which is really detrimental for hormones, needless to say, at that young of an age. And I began
that's young.
Yeah, 12, right? Because like that, your body doesn't even know what like these hormones are. So it's trying to shift everything around and get sorted. And then bam, like here's fake hormones. And I put on weight pretty quickly. And from there, I had a very interesting relationship with food. It went from I put on weight and I didn't really notice, and then someone pointed it out to me. And then from the moment of being 12 and someone saying, oh, maybe you should eat less I was just hyper aware of what I was eating. Like, could I eat this? Can I not eat this? Should I eat this? And so for the next 15 years until pretty much this year, really, when I finally had some breakthroughs, I was just either under eating or emotionally eating. So my weight would fluctuate and my mental health was just not great. And for a long time, I thought that my eating disorder was one and the same as poor mental health. But in reality, they're two completely separate entities. And I didn't really realize that until I started to heal myself and heal my relationship with food and understand that food is to nourish and that I love food. And so after college, I remember my anxiety just getting so bad that even getting out of the car to get a coffee was just crippling almost. And so I was just going about my adult life kind of getting by, right? Like I was not thriving by any means. And so I remember I was a nanny, and for the first time, this is so woo-woo and out there. It sounds so spiritual and out there, but I remember hearing a voice that was not my own. It must have been my intuition, because I was standing at the counter while I was at nanny and I heard yoga teacher training. And I was like, what? Like literally answered it.
Were you doing yoga at that time?
Once in a while.
Okay.
Once,
but it wasn't like a huge part of your life or anything at that point, right?
No, it was super intermittently that I would be practicing. Like it was kind of, I was that stereotypical athlete that would go to yoga to like stretch, but then started to quickly realize that yoga is super hard. So I heard it, and that's why I was kind of like, what? And it was like, yeah. And I was having this conversation and I'm like, what's going on right now?
The kids are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, like, are you okay? Like, what's happening? And so, like, long story short, I'm sure we'll get into everything, but I couldn't help but to sit down. I signed up for yoga teacher training and simultaneously signed up for life coach training. And the moment that I was introduced to the idea that I was not my thoughts and that I could control my mindset, and that shifting my mindset would change how my outside world was, that's where the magic began, and my anxiety started to get better. And so, yeah, now I just kind of teach everything that I've learned along the way about the mind and about the law of attraction and about manifestation and all of these great ideas and things that will help us cultivate our dream lives, pretty much. So, yeah.
No, that's really incredible. And like, so whenever you signed up for yoga teacher training, you said you jumped into the life coaching training too. Like, was that like spur of the moment? What made you say like, oh, this looks good too, you know? Because those are two big commitments to do like right at the same time.
I literally, Casey, was just like taken over. I sat down and I Googled yoga teacher training in Boston. I found the beautiful studio that I ended up doing it at. And it was just like, it was just flow. Like now I know it was just like the universe was just like flowing through me and I was allowing it. And at this point, it was also too like, I had been feeling stuck for so long that the even like remote feeling of a spark inside me, which is what I was starting to have, was enough for me to be like, okay, I have to let this play out. So then I found them, and then I saw that they did life coaching too. And I was kind of like, F it, I'm going all in. Like I'm about to do this. I had to take out a credit card. I didn't have enough money, but it was one of those things where when you know, and I knew. I don't know how I knew, but I knew. And so it's so funny because whenever I hear people on podcasts or like in videos saying, I just knew, I get so frustrated with them because I'm like, but how? Tell me how.
Right.
It really was just like a deeper knowing of some sort.
Right. You just know. That's amazing. Like, so whenever you did sign up for like the life coaching thing too, because like you had been dealing with so much anxiety and you said like you were in this feeling of being stuck. Or like in the back of your mind, did you sign up for it thinking, hey, this is going to help me get my stuff together too? Like, this is like, I'm learning how to help others at the same time, helping myself first and foremost.
To be honest, I had no idea that it would help me like it did. I kind of I've always known that I like speaking and I am okay at it. Like a lot of people are really terrified of public speaking, but I've always been like, okay at it. So I'm like, all right, well, like, I want to help people and I'm okay with speaking. So what can I do? So I really didn't know that it would. In my head, I'm like, okay, I can be a yoga teacher. I'll get certified. I can teach. It was more of like an occupation rather than, okay, this is going to change my life as well. I had no idea how deeply it would change my life by any means.
When was the first thing, maybe it was during your training or something like that, maybe something hit you really deep where you felt like a shift in your own mindset and did you have like a class that kind of hit hard, or was it after the fact when you really started diving into helping other people?
That's such a good question. And I remember, so, so going from like not doing yoga that much and never really looking at my mindset as something that I could utilize as a tool and not going introspectively inside to find answers. Yoga teacher training simultaneous to life coach training was like, oh my God. So you're doing like umpteenth hours of yoga a week. And then I'm still learning to coach, and I'm learning about the brain and neural networks and all of this stuff. And I had to like cultivate change in myself, of course, too. It was a lot, and it was emotionally draining. It was amazing. But to answer your question, the first time I ever realized that change was happening, I was standing in my kitchen and I had like the Sunday scaries times a million. And if anyone listening, or if you've ever experienced anxiety, you know that it's kind of like, it's like this small little tingle that starts to build, and you're kind of like, oh boy, here it comes. Like, here comes the anxiety. And it was starting to build, and I was just like, oh, like, why? And then I just had this really profound moment of, but I can choose not to be anxious, which sounds so simple. But for someone who has like anxiety where I couldn't get out of bed sometimes, for me to understand that I could choose to feel anxious or not was this moment of like, whoa, I can choose my thoughts, and I can choose whether or not to experience this anxiety. And so that day I was like, you know what? I'm experiencing this feeling, but I'm not going to call it anxiety. And then I just started to realize it was just energy that I had been for so long naming anxiety, which perpetuated that, of course. And that was the first moment that I realized how in control I am. And that was the most powerful moment maybe of my life.
That's amazing. No, that's so true. I love that. And it's like, I love how you worded it earlier too, when you were saying like, when you got into that mentality of like, you are not your thoughts, and that you really have so much more control than we give ourselves credit for. And it's like, it's amazing. And it's cool when like just talking to people that are like-minded, like you, or like, if you're like coaching people, like how cool it is when it's like, you get that person realizes that to a point, like everything is your own fault, like good or bad. It's like, once they get at it, like this, like victimized mentality, then some really amazing stuff can really start to come into your life. And like, I love when people get out of that victim mentality, because it opens up a whole new world.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was doing, you know, and when you're so deep in it, sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it. You just get so carried away with, I have anxiety. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm just going to not try. The fear holds you back. And that was why I was feeling stuck, because all of these things I wanted to do, all of this good energy that wanted to flow through me and wanted to come through me and wanted to be productive and help people and make an impact, I wasn't allowing to. And so that's where the stuck feeling came from. All of this energy inside of me, like ready to go and help people and do things. But I was just sitting back being like, no, I have anxiety for so long. Like, and finally I was just like, no, I don't.
Right. No, for sure. And like, so where did it go from there? So you dove into the two classes, the yoga, the life training, or the life coaching. So how did the courses go? Like, how did it all kind of snowball from that point?
Yeah. So yoga teacher training, obviously yoga in itself is a life-changing practice, just getting into your body and becoming aware of how you feel and moving your body in a different way. I was so used to, like I said, being an athlete and go and going hard and sprinting. And when you fluidly move and link your breath to your movement, you come into your body in a different way. And that was definitely big for me, because at that point I had lost my period because my eating was at such a bad point.
Wow. How old were you then?
So this was 2 years ago. Okay. Yeah. Fairly recent. So I didn't have my period. And I was starting to realize, though, like what it meant to be in my body. And this was, yoga teacher training was kind of the step into the door of realizing that our bodies are just our vehicles. And here I was, you know, manipulating how much I ate or overeating and doing all of these things to my poor body. And really being with myself in yoga made me have like a different level of compassion for my body. And I started to cultivate like this love for my body. And so that helped me a lot, because when 99% of your energy is going towards eating or not eating or working out or you know, it was just encapsulating me completely.
Right.
And so when I started to love myself enough to not spend all of my energy on it, then, oh my gosh, all of these other outlets for my energy opened up. And so yoga in that sense was so amazing. And it allowed me to, I started teaching after, and that's obviously scary, getting up in front of, 20 or 30 adults and being like, here's how to move your body. And
Right.
I hadn't done something like that in so long. And so facing a new kind of fear that it's really interesting because in our day and age, because of social media or because of our jobs or what have you, you don't necessarily have to ever face a fear if you don't want to. Like you don't even have to go out to grocery shop. So like getting out and doing things that scared me, yoga teacher training, that was huge for me because then you kind of start to feel that fear and be like, oh, like I'm fine. So I can keep doing this. So that was yoga teacher training. And then the coach training is where the mindset work began. And that's what changed my life because we watched this really old school documentary on quantum physics and the law of attraction. And I was like, wait, what? Like, what is all of this? Because, growing up, we're never taught at all that how you think directly affects your world. Like everything about how you think, whether it be your perceptions or your beliefs or the thoughts you're thinking, like you are a creator. So how you're thinking, like you said, like it's hard for people to hear sometimes, but you are literally creating everything in your world, whether it be a flat tire or a bigger paycheck, it's all on you. And when I learned that, I was first like, that's really annoying. But it's also like so powerful and it gives you all of your power back because it's funny too, because then it's just like, oh, I just have to think better thoughts and feel good. Like, I guess I'll do that. I guess I'll be happier.
Right.
And so that's when I started to be like, I didn't even mean to, I know I was in life coach training, but I don't think I even meant to become a life coach. I just found a love for all of these ideas that I would get like physics books and I would just be reading about all of the laws of the universe and how the brain worked. And it was by default that I started coaching and doing a podcast almost because I was like, everyone needs to know this. Like, how are we not teaching this in schools? How did I not know this for 27 years? And so the biggest gift that coaching gave me was not even the tools to run a business or how to necessarily help others, but to help myself first, because that's the most important thing.
100%. Yeah. And you're right. Like the fact that that's not taught more is just so crazy. I mean, like even just on the most basic, I mean, you could use this obviously to help create like whatever it is, right? Whether it's the job that is like your dream job, right? Or your dream life, like just to get to that point. But even something as like simple as, tomorrow, like when I wake up, I can choose to oversleep and start my day super hectic, or I can create this amazing morning where I wake up and I work out and I work on my mindset and I have like this, just an incredible outlook for the day. And then when I wake up my daughter, like I'm in such a better place for her. Like I'm creating like this whole better situation and atmosphere for like my entire family just by deciding to wake up and do what I need to do to be my best self. And like that just like goes into so many other avenues because you're going to affect people you meet out in public. It's going to affect how my daughter acts the rest of the day. And then that comes back to me, how I'm going to act the rest of the day. Like just stuff like that. It's just like, if you just look at it as something just as small as deciding to act a certain way because it's going to make you better and the entire world better. Like it's so life-changing.
Yeah, 100%. We're energetic beings, right? So the energy that we put out is palpable. So like you said, like when you wake up your daughter and you're in a great mood, you're in alignment, right? You wake her up and she feels that. That is such a different feeling. There's just like this huge spectrum of feelings and people pick up on that. Like your vibration literally goes outside of yourself in this big circumference. And if your heart is open, then it's as big as like 10 feet. You have this huge network around you of energy. And the more closed off you are, it's really funny because I always think of the Grinch, like his heart, like gets smaller and smaller. And that's how like your energetic field is. Like you are an energetic being and you're also a point of attraction. So not only is it important to feel good because others around you will feel good and because it's fun to feel good, but by default, you're also attracting whatever vibrational resonance you're at. So if I'm waking up and I'm feeling so grateful to have woken up in a bed, and I'm so grateful that I get to go for a walk, and then I have a body that works, and I'm just going with the flow, and I meditate and I clear my mind, that is the complete opposite vibration of waking up and, being tired and drinking a coffee and trudging along to work. And then from there, that's what you're attracting. And that's where your experiences are coming from. And that's where the money is coming from, or the lack of the money. And that's where everything starts. So the most important thing as human beings for us is to just be so aware of how we think, because how we think is what we believe, and how we think is how we feel. So when it's so fun. Like, all you have to do is be like, what will make me happy right now? Because the ego is elusive, and the ego will always be scared, but that's its job. But just knowing that you don't have to feel bad. You can experience a challenge, but you don't have to feel bad, and you don't have to be like, woe is me. And you have direct control as to how you feel, and therefore what you experience every moment of every day.
Absolutely. And isn't it cool, Casey? I'm sure like you see this all the time now. How many times now when you are putting something out there into the world, whether you write it down as a goal or whether you just say it or just let it be known, and you focus on it, you think about it every day, and then that thing actually like happens. And it's not by accident. It's because you focused on it, you've kind of subconsciously made those actions to get you there over time, and the right people tend to come your way. It's just like this crazy, amazing domino effect that some people could see as luck, but it's like, no, like you've been focusing on this thing. It's like just that law of manifesting, or the law of attraction that you were talking about. But I mean, I'm sure you see like that kind of stuff, or you're more aware of that kind of stuff all the time now.
100%. This is such like a rabbit hole that we could totally go down.
Because your date night might be ruined. Right. We might be here for a while.
Right? Like, there's so much to be said.
Sorry,
no. It's, right.
Tell her I said sorry.
She won't be surprised. She'll like come home and hear the word manifest and be like, oh God, there's no shot. Right. No, but it's so true, because it's funny, because I feel like manifest is kind of a buzzword right now in the wellness world. And it often gets confused as synonymous to creating, but actually manifesting means to match something. So manifesting, like literally in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, is to reflect the inside on the outside. So when we talk about manifesting, and like you said, like setting an intention. So when you set an intention, so for example, you're like, I want to have 6,000 more followers on Instagram. You set that intention. Not only does the action part of your brain hear that and set everything up for you to take actions, like you said, but also then you subconsciously become that person. And then your job is just to match how that person would feel, which is really good, really grateful, taking really inspired action. And I think that we could all use a little more intention, because it's really interesting when you think about it. How often, before this year, I never did this. How often do we sit down and think to ourselves, what do I want right now? What exactly do I want? What exactly is my purpose? What do I want to accomplish? What do I want to pay off? Where do I want to travel? Like, we're so busy that we never take time to sit with our own ideas and our own wants. And then how are those things supposed to come to fruition if we don't even know what we want? Like, there is this infinite energy. The universe is around us and is like, okay, what do you want? And we don't even know. Yeah. So then our vibration's all over the place, and really just being intentional and being happy, and then taking inspired action, because there's a really big difference between inspired action and resistant action. And for so long, I was taking resistant action, which for me looked like being really scared that I wouldn't make a car payment. And then from that place of fear and doubt and anxiety, I would then put work out into the world. But what am I going to get back? I'm going to get the same vibration back. I'm not going to get very many people who are into it, because that vibration going out wasn't that great. But when I allow myself to have a morning of alignment and of tea and of quiet and of a walk or a workout or what have you, and just get really in the zone and really in tune, then the action from there, then the action from the resonance of like being with the universe, your inner being, whatever you want to call it, that is going to be so magical that you do not even have to do remotely as much work. And I don't know if you've probably experienced this too. Like when you feel good, the outcome is so much better that you don't have to grind all the time. Don't get me wrong. I love doing work. It's really fulfilling, but you don't have to lose sleep and you don't have to have 18 Starbucks.
Right.
So,
no, 100%.
I just went down the rabbit hole a little. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
No, I love it too. I could listen to it all day. So, so I'm with you. No, and 100%. Like, it's just like, it's not a big deal. And I mean, you could kind of go into this later as you talk about more of how you kind of like transitioned your just what you're doing career-wise altogether. But it's amazing how when you find something that is aligned with what you love and you're super passionate about it, like you said, you don't need the 80 Starbucks coffees, or it's just like, it's not a big deal to stay up to 2 or 3 sometimes getting a podcast ready because I really love it. It's just like things like that. Whereas if it was like a project for like a job that I hated, I would be just like in my feelings, right? And just like super like stressed and, then I would probably have the coffee, So it's really, it's just a whole nother, you're dealing with a whole other energy when you do that. And it is like when you were talking about like that resistant energy before, it's sad because that's where the way you describe that is the way probably 90% of our country is. Mm-hmm. Just always in like the car payment mode or the next bill, or am I making enough so I can be happy? But then you make that enough and then it's okay, I have to make this much now and be happy. It's just like a cycle that you never reach. Yeah, it's just insane.
It's interesting because for me, like the journey has been first learning to be the observer. So I'm the observer of my thoughts. I'm the creator of my reality. I am a point of attraction. All I need to do is be a cooperative component to what the universe is trying to flow me, which means that I just have to be happy and go with the flow and strip back all of the stories and all of the chaos mentally and all of these things that my ego is trying to say because it wants to bring me back to a place of fear. And from there, once you realize that that's true, that you can manifest something. So for anyone listening who wants to try to manifest something, I always say to focus on something that you don't have much resistance towards. Like say you love red velvet cake. I'm using an example that actually happened in my own life. I love red velvet cake. And the other day I was saying to my girlfriend, I never get to have red velvet cake and I haven't had it in so long. And then someone brought in red velvet cake the next day to my work as I walked in. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that is not like that is a manifestation, like putting something out into the world awesome. And then it coming back to you or you matching it. Right. And so it's like practicing being a creator because literally our thoughts bring particles into the world, bring situations into the world as possibilities. So that's a whole another conversation. But
can we just have a phone call where we just talk?
I know. I'm trying
to reserve your friendship for another day.
I know. I feel bad. I'm trying to cram so much into this. I'm like, what do I want everyone to know? But yeah, it's just after the mental work, it's just realizing that presence is so, so important. And the only thing we have is the present moment. So often we are thinking about the past and we're then using that to propel ourselves mentally into the future. And we never experience full presence, or I hadn't until like very recently, where you are just so present that you aren't even thinking, like you're just in this no mind place of presence. And when you can experience that and you can quiet the mind and then you can just flow throughout the day, like go with the flow, that's when like it is so clear when you get these intuitive hits that you can't help but do. Like for me, yoga teacher training, like I didn't know it back then, but that was just like this hit from my intuition, from the universe. And it's just like practicing presence and practicing being the observer, and not every time you have a thought, like you can either go with it and just go off on that train, or you can like bring it back in and either decide that, yeah, I want to start thinking about that. That's really going to help me. Or I don't want to think about that today. So it's just like a mix of, yes, of course, thinking and manifesting and having fun with it, because once you get the hang of it, oh my God, it's fun. Like eating that red velvet cake, I was like, yeah, what are the odds? But it's also, quieting the mind. And we're in an age of information overload. Like, what is she eating? How is she decorating her house? What does she do for a job? How does she dress? All of these things. And we're all unique beings. Like we each have a purpose that's so specific that we came into this body with. But if we never allow ourselves to sit with like a notebook and think, what do I love? What do I want to do? What is my purpose? What are my ideas surrounding this topic? What are my observations that I've had this week? And how often do we do that, right? Like I had never done that until this week, like really sat down with myself and been like, here are my thoughts. I'm going to start sharing my thoughts, you know?
Yeah. And you know what's really cool about that, Casey, too, that I was just thinking about? It's cool when you do take the time to document your thoughts like that, because how powerful it is when you go back and read those and you're like, man, like this either A, this happened, or B, okay, this didn't work out, but look what it led to. And I'm so thankful that this original plan didn't work out. And I love reflecting like that because I think it's so powerful, and it just gives you so much more gratitude for where you currently are, and for things that you really wanted to happen in that moment that didn't happen, but it was all to lead you to where you currently are. So like, I think that's like just huge.
I could not agree more. It's so funny you say that because so right now I'm living in Colorado, but 4 months ago, my girlfriend and I left Boston in our car and we traveled across the country, and we were supposed to move to California. So we're traveling and talk about like getting out of your comfort zone. When you have anxiety and you can't control anything, like I would say that is the best way to decrease anxiety, because then you just realize that like it's all made up, and then you have no control, and you're like, well, I have to sleep in this tent on the ground. I have no choice. So I can't really even be anxious about it. And so we were supposed to move to California, and we stopped in Colorado on the way, and I was like, oh, shit, I really like Colorado. This is, oh no. And so then we got to California, and that was the goal. That was what we've been talking about for years. That was where we were meant to be. And we get there and my gut was like, hard no. Like, hard no.
Were you trying to do like LA?
San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah. So we get there, and it was just a moment of experiencing what I had thought I wanted for so long, being just a moment of contrast. Like completely just, you were supposed to come here to learn that you're not meant to be here. Now go back to Colorado. And yeah. And that was like interesting, because I just had to surrender to the plan at that point, because Lindsay and I were sleeping in my car. Nothing was flowing. Nothing was working out there. We couldn't find a place. It just didn't feel right. And we could have forced it. We could have taken the, right, like the resistant action, both gotten jobs, forced it, stayed there. But instead, I kind of threw my hands up in the air and was like, all right, I know that I was supposed to learn from this. I get it. Now what's going to happen next? And I kid you not, within the hour, we got a call from family who needed us to come back to Colorado and like watch, like babysit their kids for a while. And it just flowed. So when you can like learn, yeah. And it was just seeing things as contrast. Like, okay, I really wanted this to happen, but it didn't happen. Why not? Like, what am I supposed to learn from this? And then that takes a lot of like the edge off of things, when you can be like, okay, so this is a challenge, or this is a learning experience. Where do I go from here?
Exactly. Yeah. Cause I mean, like you're saying, like the trip wasn't easy at all. And I feel like probably 99% of all breakthroughs, it's chaotic right beforehand, right? Like nothing's going to go right beforehand.
Yeah. 100%. It's, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. No. So you don't teach yoga right now, right? When did you decide to kind of switch from that? Or are you trying to incorporate that back, or how did that kind of go?
So I taught for a year, and then it didn't feel right, which looking back, I think fear might have gotten the best of me. It was like a mix of, I still had like pretty bad anxiety back then. So much can change in here. It's so crazy. But so it was just like every time I got up to teach, it was just, I was still pretty anxious, and I loved teaching, but like fear just really got the best of me. So I taught for a year, and then I stopped teaching. But now that we're in Colorado, and now that I'm like a new person, it's so crazy. And I'm going to start teaching again because I miss it. And like, I'll just be laying down to go to bed, and I'll be thinking of flows. And I'm like, all right, this is when you know that like you need to get back into something. So I took a break from it, and now I'm so ready to get back into it. Well,
if you need a yoga tester, this is my 2019. I'll let it be known on this episode. It's my yoga year. Like, yes. I am going to be, I want to look at 2019 on New Year's Eve and be like I am a yoga boss, because I've been definitely more consistent. I have like committed to like, if anything, it has to happen before bed. But if I can get like a really good one in, during the day too, that's awesome. But it
Mhm.
has to happen every evening, minimal. And I've been sticking to it, but it's it's a process. Like, it's hard.
Oh yeah. Getting to
Yeah.
your mat is like the resistance to get on my mat sometimes. I'm like, why? Like,
Oh, that's stepping on you, Matt. No.
yeah. Like, so I mean, I commend you because I'm a yoga teacher, so I could teach myself, but I have to go to classes. I'm that person. I'm with workouts, with anything. I just really enjoy going to classes because if not, then like I'll end up just sitting in frog for like an hour and being like, what just happened? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
So
exactly.
yeah.
I'm like that too, though. I really like, even for like workouts, I like people just to kind of I don't want to think about it. Like, just tell me what to
Yes.
do. I'll get it
Hmm.
done. So yeah, no, I'm with you with that. So you're gonna
Yeah.
start teaching again. So that's amazing.
Yeah. I'm so excited.
Colorado, that's gonna be like an incredible place because that's such of like a I guess like a health conscious place. Like, people are more open minded to things like that, right? Especially where you are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. So I found out that I don't know if this is true. It could be just Colorado people telling me this, but apparently Colorado is like the happiest state or the healthiest state, or
I've
maybe
heard that.
both, which I totally believe. But yeah, I've been trying to. I don't know. It's hard because my home studio was like my home studio. Like, it was where I learned everything. It was where I practiced the most. It just like had a piece of my heart. So trying to find another studio like that might be a challenge, but I'm sure that things will flow as they will. But yeah, even if I just teach like once or twice, just to get up there and like change someone's day in the form of yoga is going to be really, really great.
You think you'll do it in the digital space at all, or do you like to keep it in person, that type of form? Or do you know? I guess you don't have to decide right now.
No, this is good. We're getting to some debate. Definitely in person because, as you know, like when you have a podcast and so much is on the digital, it's like by the time I actually got a part-time job when we got here, just for the sake of like staying sane and seeing people during the day. You know what I mean?
I do. I do.
So yeah, probably in person, I would think.
That's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And you are vegan, right? So how did that start? Did it start like when you got into yoga, or has that always been the case, or what's that journey been like for you?
So it's been like 4 years. And I do want to preface with I'm vegan, like 99.9%, but I'm also, and I'm sure some vegans like would not like agree, but if I really, really want something and I don't have access to it and it's not vegan, I'll have a few bites. So like put it on the record.
Hey, there's no judgment here.
Yeah. But I do like saying that because coming from someone who has a history of disordered the thoughts surrounding food, it's really nice to be like, yeah, you know, like I'm pretty vegan, but I do have the freedom of like, sometimes I learned this actually on the road trip, like sometimes, and I know it's excuses, but like there was just not as much access. And I was like, wow, this is crazy because you really get to see how, when you don't have like certain amounts of income or what have you, like how veganism could be a little less, enjoyable for people, which is like, I definitely want to speak to people about like, it's so doable though, because apples and bananas are everywhere. But yes, so I am vegan. It happened because a few years ago, I remember when I was drinking, I don't really drink anymore. I woke up and I was kind of hungover and my friend was coming to see me from school and he showed up and he was like, hey, what's up? How are you? And I was like, he was glowing. He was like this god. And I was like, what are you? And he was like, vegan. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? like truly. And
I like the answer to that.
And it was so funny because it was the stereotypical vegan that comes in my house. I'm eating pizza hungover, hating life. And he comes in my house and is like, do you want to date? And I was like, get that like cockroach thing away. I do not want to date. Now I eat like 50 a day, but I was like, no. And then he made me like mac and cheese with nutritional yeast. And I was like, I
can't deal with you right now.
I cannot. But I was like, what? He didn't drink coffee. He was energetic. We went to the gym and he was just crushing it. And I was like, all right, I need to try this. I need to drink some of this Kool-Aid at least for a week. So I went on a vegan detox for a week and I never really looked back. Honestly, I felt so good that I was like, whoa, my skin cleared up. I lost weight. And just like ever since then, like, you know, eating more plants is just right. Like right now, realistically, 99% of my diet is 6 foods, like bananas, potatoes, vegetables, hummus, like
Oh yeah.
oats, peanut butter.
Yep.
And it just really helps. Like it takes up a lot less mental space. And so I did it for like the looks and feeling better. But then when you learn about the animals, I could never, ever eat meat again. Even there, I can't ever. And then for the environment, and it just makes so much sense, obviously.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the effects that it has on your mindset, on anxiety, and as you incorporate like yoga and just the meditation aspect that comes with yoga, like it just all goes so hand in hand.
Yeah. Can I tell you? So Pat and I actually did a 5-day juice and raw food detox. So the first 2 days we only did juice. And then the next 3 days we did juice and some raw food. So like salads with avocado.
If you guys do this again, can I join in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
It was so amazing. And it's so funny because how I felt, there's no other way to describe it, but besides like, it was so good that it was scary. Like I felt so good that I was almost like, what do I do? Like do you know what I mean? Like it was something like an out of body experience. And my girlfriend has done like a mini juice cleanse, or will like take a wheatgrass shot and be like, I'm high on life. I'm like, that's wheatgrass for you. Like, but yeah, it's just, there's so much to be said about just eating things that your body is inherently supposed to have. And yeah, so just like eating plants, and then just, it simplifies everything. Just everything will just fall into place from there.
For sure. And it's interesting too, because how you were talking about just how you had dealt with disordered eating and things like that. Like whenever you do go plant-based, like it's, a lot of people think it's restrictive, but it gives you a lot more freedom, because you don't have to like just sit there and count calories or points or like whatever you do, right? Yeah. It's just like you eat when you're hungry, you eat foods that your body can process like it's meant to. And then you know what to do with that. Like then you just have like an abundance of energy, because you're not digesting like a whole cow for the next 3 days. So it's really amazing, like the freedom it gives you, and just obviously the benefits that come from that too.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm just the like lead by example kind of vegan, where like, I would never ever, like if I go out to eat with someone and they're getting whatever they get, I would never say anything, only because I'm for being vegan. Like some people like, I know there's a place for advocacy and everything, but I'm just like the quiet kind. But when someone's eating meat, like I would have to leave, because not because I'm like offended by them or anything like that, but it makes me really sad.
Yeah.
So I don't like leave, like I wouldn't leave the table, but like that would be really mean, and they'd be like stereotypical vegan. But it like genuinely like makes me really viscerally sad when someone's eating something. So I'm like, I don't know. It just, like you said, like, I mean, it helped me broaden my horizons completely. And it actually helped do away with a lot of the false connotations I had, particularly surrounding carbs, because now the amount of carbs I eat is just like crazy. But yeah, it's just really easy. It's just really easy. And I think the other thing too is, because we run our own businesses and podcasts and everything like that, I don't really have the time, nor would I want to my body to spend the time to have to figure out what something is and try to digest it. And like you said, like if I were to eat meat, then that is so like 80% of our energy goes to like digestion, like all of our emotions and everything that are assimilated in our gut. So it's like, plants, literally you eat them, you break them down, they're gone, but you have the energy. Like that's how it works. And it's so nice. It's kind of like, once you start to eat vegan, you're kind of like, whoa, this is how this is supposed to work.
Right. And a whole nother rabbit hole that we don't have to go down, but just the energy that you could potentially take on by consuming an animal, right? The energy that the process that they went through, like you're taking all of that in, as opposed to like the actual live vibrations that come with like live fruits and vegetables. It's just, there's no comparison.
100%. Oh, you'll love this. Okay. So they created this machine that essentially could measure the vibrations of biological materials and things that aren't like quote unquote living. And do you know what the 2 top highest vibrational foods are?
Oh, maybe like an orange?
So in terms of food groups, it goes,
food groups.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, definitely fruit, right?
Yep. Fruit's number one.
Okay. Like leafy greens, maybe?
Yep. Greens.
Got it.
Yeah. So kiwis are like alive pretty much. Like they're so good for you vibrationally. So it's really nice because even when like, instead of being like, oh yeah, like you're eating a dead animal, why? It's like just knowing that because we are energetic and vibrational from an energy standpoint, fruit is like, so when people are like, there's sugar in fruit, I'm like, I cannot with you. You can no, because like, no, it's just vibrationally, like it will just light you up. Greens and fruit. So like, I don't know. When I was training for my half marathon, I was like that person who had 3 bananas in their morning smoothie and was just eating so much fruit. And I was doing raw till 4 and like all of these things. And it's just like experimenting. Everyone's different, but yeah, you can never go wrong with fruit and greens and plants that are from the earth, obviously.
For sure. Do you still do raw till 4?
Once in a while. I love it.
I was actually just thinking about that the other day, possibly doing that. Cause I've never done that for like an extended period, but maybe like a month or so to try it out.
Yeah, I did it for a while. And I will say, what helped me a lot was I did mostly raw till 4. So the only thing I would eat that wasn't raw until 4 was I'd have a baked potato, just because when you're active, like it was when I was training for a half marathon, it's just like financially, like to eat that much fruit and raw foods was a little bit tough. And so I would just have like a potato. But yeah, I've found that raw till 4. And then once in a while I'll incorporate not vegan. Like this doesn't have anything to do with vegan, but intermittent fasting helps me a lot once in a while too.
That's cool. No, that's awesome. And Casey, with your podcast, you kind of talked a second about like what really inspired it. So it was pretty much you were excited about what you were learning with all of this and just wanted to put it out there on the road, right? When did you start it?
I started it about 6 months ago.
Cool.
Yeah. And it was another kind of one of those things where I kept hearing podcasts. I kept thinking about it. And then I'm into like numbers. Like when you see triple numbers, that's just like a sign from the universe that you're on the right path. And I kept seeing 444, which essentially means, yes, do it, get your shit together and do it. And the universe will have your back, but you need to do it. And I saw that so many times. And then one night I was driving by Best Buy and pretty much like just swerved off of the highway because I was like, all right, fine. So I got all of the stuff. And then, it's called I Can't Wait to Tell You because it was just all of the things that I couldn't wait to tell people. And it's funny because at first I was like matcha date or like all these like lame like things that had nothing to do with me. And then I was like, no, it's just I can't wait to tell you. And it's just things that I wish I had known like a long time ago.
Yeah. How's the experience been for you so far?
So nice. It's so great. And like you said, it's just like conversations like this, like just getting to consciously have people on and have conversations where, it's different than the day-to-day. And it's just like, that's the expansion that we need, like this is the work. This is what everyone needs to hear, all of these new ideas. And I think that the best part is that right now the norm isn't working. The norm of how society is run, the norm of how we eat, the norm of how we think. But there's this paradigm shift going on where we're all starting to open up to our spirituality and be like, there's got to be something more. And then being like, oh, there is something more. And, I think that having this show, and I've listened to your show too, so it's the same thing. Like we're on this leading edge of changing the world together. So the more people that can hear it, the better,
Definitely. And it's like, it's one of those things too that's really cool is how many times, especially as you get older, do you really take the time to sit down with somebody that you don't know and have like an actual meaningful conversation that's not like so like fluff and superficial. Like you just want to like actually learn about that person and what they're into. Like it just doesn't happen unless you're kind of like in this space. So it's very cool just getting to meet so many amazing people. Plus you can like just reach out to people that you think you would resonate with. I shot you a message, or like people that you've looked up to for a while and you have like an excuse to be like, hey, want to come hang out with me on a Saturday night? And so it's like, otherwise, you do that as a stranger, they're going to be like, ignore. So, who is this person? Yeah. But, so it's being able to connect with people, like actually connect with people is something that isn't happening. Like you're talking about the information overload, like there's the same thing with the connection overload. Like you can have 80 million friends on Instagram or Twitter, but you don't really know anybody. So it's like, I love the connection aspect of it.
Yeah. I've never really thought about that. That's so true.
Yeah. But so with the podcast though, like what's maybe been something that you've taken away? Maybe a takeaway from a guest or the process or both, just through the last 6 months?
A few things. So I think that, and I'm sure you've experienced this, I think that one of the biggest things I've personally taken away is talking about things that I don't want to talk about is the most important thing I can do. So something that might embarrass me or something that is hard to share, like those are the things that people need to hear. So, I've talked in depth about my eating, like how bad it was. And that's not always easy. Or I've talked about something that didn't work for me, but learning to be okay with things not working or be like, yeah, hey, I did this and it was such a flop, but this is what I learned from it. So I hope you can learn from it too. So I think that like taking away especially in like the entrepreneurial space, the taboo of like things going wrong, like people don't seem to like to talk about that all the time, but that's where we all will learn from. So I've learned to not just highlight, but also be like, yeah, this didn't work for me. So here's what's going on. And then guests wise, I love having guests on because
I loved your episode with Ricky, by the way. I just want to give that a quick shout.
Yeah, thank you. Ricky's awesome.
He seems cool.
Yeah, when I have guests on and I get to just talk with them and see them, you'll have experiences too. When you get to just ask someone about their life and connect with them, you watch this human light up and you feel that energy inside them and you connect with them. There is no feeling like watching a person in their element. And that has been the best part of the show. And like you said, like I've had some cool guests on that might not have ever happened if not for the podcast or if not for like being bold enough to, like ask. You got to just ask. If it's a no, who cares? Because sometimes it's a yes.
But it's crazy though, right? How many people do say like yes? Like people are so much more accessible than you think they are. And I think that's a big setback too for people that maybe want to do something like this or just want to reach out for a mentor or something like that. But like, you'd be surprised who you can shoot a message to or email to that maybe has a big following or is famous or whatever. And they actually like will respond back and be like, oh, hey, so we don't give people enough credit for wanting to tell their story or wanting to connect.
Yeah, agreed. I think the coolest one for me was, and this is definitely one of my coolest manifestations of 2018 was, I don't know if you watched the show Survivor, you've probably heard of it.
Oh, I mean, of course. Yeah. I haven't watched it since like early seasons, but yeah, no, I always loved it though.
Yeah. So when I was a nanny, the little one loved it just as much as I did. I got him into it and we were both obsessed. Long story short, he loved this guy on the show who ended up winning. So one night I was trying to figure out what to get him for his birthday. And the universe was like, message Wendell, who was the winner of Survivor last year. And I was like, no way. I messaged him and I was like, hey, if I send you something, will you like send it back? Whatever. We end up meeting in person. We are now friends. He has been on the podcast. Like, I was not expecting that. Like he had just won $1 million. He is like, Survivor's a big show. Like he's like a micro celebrity. And when we met, I had to like pretend hard that I wasn't fangirling, but oh my God, I was fangirling. So yeah, it's cool. Like you said, people want to help. So it's great.
Definitely. No, that's amazing though. I love that. That's like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Cool. So you are working on your course, and is it available yet, or like what's it all about?
It is. So it will start on Monday, January 14th. It's the third round. It's about manifesting. It's called Manifesting Your Dreams. Just super simple, but it's just what manifesting is, how your brain works, a little bit of quantum physics so that you understand that when you think of something, when you observe a reality, you're actually bringing it into our physical particle world of matter. So it's just understanding how to be conscious about creating, because that's the first step to any change you're going to make, is to be conscious and to be aware. So we get into beliefs and perceptions and manifesting, and there's coaching and we talk about it, and there's live conferences with everyone, because it's time for everyone to start to realize, like we said, that everything going on they created. So no one is at the victimization of themselves or of the world. Like, we get to create. We are meant to create. Our minds are meant to imagine things and then make them be. And so it's the best part of it. It's just fun. Like, all of these high energy people come in and we all get to talk about all of this and we get to like work on people's mindsets. And my favorite part is, in the first week, I have an assignment to email me something you want to manifest. And by the end, these people are texting me, they are emailing me their manifestations, and I'm just like crying, like, yes, like it's so like
awesome.
Part magic, part science, but either way, it's so fun.
That's amazing. No, I will definitely give me that link and I'll put it in the show notes too. That way people can just kind of click and check it out if they're interested, because I know it's going to be amazing. And so Casey, so the course is obviously huge and we kind of touched on you getting back into yoga, but is there anything else going on in the future that you want to put out there and share, or just continue to put out content, make new podcasts, work on the yoga training or the yoga teaching? But is there anything else in the future you want to put out there and share?
Yeah,
or manifest, put it out there.
Yeah, I'm actually working on, it's going to be really fun. So I'm actually feeling a shift right now. I do one-on-one coaching, but in the future, I'm feeling a shift to do group coaching, which is a little bit nicer for people because it's not as individualized. And so there's group people. So yeah, you could just look up for group coaching. I'm starting a mastermind at the end of January, which is going to be really great. That's already gotten the ball rolling. But yeah, I guess just group coaching and podcasting and courses for now. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. No, that's amazing. And I'm excited to just follow along with everything that you're doing, because I know it's going to be amazing. So Casey, what is the best way for people to follow you on social media? That way they can keep up with everything that you're doing. And guys, definitely give her a follow because she does great with Instagram stories and keeping you up to date. So what's the best way to follow you?
Definitely, like I'm on my Instagram stories like a pretty good amount. So probably Instagram.
I enjoy them. I think they're
You know what's funny? I think that most people enjoy them besides my girlfriend. Like one day I'm trying to figure out something like to do for my business, and she was like, "Maybe you should Instagram story less." And I was like, "Excuse me?"
Do that.
No. So definitely Instagram. It's just my name, CASEY_Edward. And then everything is linked from there. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. And then just Casey, just closing question that I ask every guest. Mm-hmm. But if you just had one piece of advice for the audience, maybe it's something that's been your biggest takeaway on your wellness journey so far. But if you just had one piece of advice to give, what would it be?
Meditate. 10,000% meditate. If you're one of those people that's like, I can't meditate, then just practice mindful moments. Being in the grocery store and instead of being on your phone, just taking in the moment, be present. But meditation is just like, I don't even know how I didn't mention this on the show, but meditation changed everything for me. So meditate is probably my best piece of advice for sure.
Love it. No, yes. That's perfect, Casey. And just thank you so much for taking time to come on. I really loved having you. And like I said before, I love all the work you're doing and excited to follow along. So thank you for real so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored that I got to be on your show. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you loved my conversation with Casey. She's doing so much positive work. So be sure to give her a follow on social media to keep up with everything that she's been working on. You can find her social media links and podcast link that we talked about in the episode in the show notes, but you can also find them on my website as well at drcaseyjohnson.com. That's DrKaseyJohnson.com. Click on the Listen tab. Then from there, you'll be able to see all of the past guests that have come on the Unlock Wellness podcast, read a little bit about each guest, and be able to click on their social media links, websites, all of that. So all of Casey's information can be found on my site as well. If you guys loved today's episode with Casey, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Thank you guys so much again for tuning into today's episode. I hope you loved it. I hope it inspires you. And most importantly, I hope you take action.